Like, gnarliest sounding band I was ever in, and I had absolute spaghetti arms.
I don't know, man.
I've always been genetically a big guy.
Mm.
But I mean, I went through, my ex-wife and I ran a gym. I mean, I went through a period in time where that taking care of myself was pretty high premium. And I look at those pictures, and that clearly was not that point.
Right, well, but I will say this. I think it was, you sounded more like the voice on that record than the guy as the decade moved into like the mid-90s when it was Bay Area Dan.
Yeah, I mean, Bay Area Dan was an odd piece. I mean, in my own opinion, my best vocals that I ever did were in a band that never released a record.
That's Both Hands Broken?
Yeah, and I mean, for people who are willing to put up with something like a 4-track recording of a practice in an Oakland basement, it's out there somewhere in the interwebs.
Oh, it's on YouTube.
And even there, I listen to it and I go, yeah, this is the best singing I've ever done. And in my infinite wisdom, we never recorded it. We went into some cheap studio one night and tracked some songs from the second version of that band, but that was a more conventional vocal, and I actually kind of struggled with it. But the really sing-songy stuff, it was the year, maybe 18 months after 411 stopped playing, and so I still had the pipes, and I was a little more practiced in melody, and I was more uninhibited because I was up in the Bay Area surrounded by strangers, and I didn't, it wasn't the town that accused me of trying to sound like Frank Sinatra when I stopped doing Carrie Nation vocals. So it's like, that's good stuff.
What do you think it is about you that you could literally have kept singing the way you sang in Carrie Nation, No for an Answer. You could have done another band after that. You could have, but you, to me, have always seemed like a guy that you enjoy doing things for a certain amount of time, and then you just have an itch within yourself to. It's very similar to like Kevin Seconds. Like they could have kept writing the same fast punk records forever, but they you just kind of, as you get older, at least I think you sort of understand he had to do New Wind. He had to go in that direction, and I think I understand it, but I can't verbalize it. What do you think that it is in you that kind of forces you to do that?
This sounds like I'm a politician. I'm dodging it. I'm not. I'm absolutely going to answer the question. But, since you and I haven't done this in a while, what's interesting? Answering questions like that when I haven't been in a band for a few years right now seems a lot more narcissistic than it used to.
Gotcha.
It almost feels like I'm pretending to be a singer by analyzing this. And that's I'm going to have to fix that. Anyway, there's two things that I think of when you ask me that question. The first one is something I've repeated in other interviews, which is Chris Lisk asked me one time. You ever think about the fact that if you just kept the same name through all the music you did, that your life would be very different right now? And maybe you'd be, a festival circuit type or a guy who can call his own shots when it comes to, guarantees or venues or things like that. He said, he's gone through a billion styles, but Mike Muir is always going to come out as suicidal tendencies, which one thing that ignores the existence of infectious grooves, but still I understood his point, which is, he went through his personal, evolution, but under his own banner. Well, that's sort of a commercial inquiry. Don't you think it would have been a better marketing strategy if you'd done it this way? Well, it was never marketing. The second part of that question, I'm never comfortable getting up on stage and not being genuine. And that sounds really self-congratulating and really self-ennobling. What I mean is I'm very uncomfortable talking out of my ass. When Revelation 25 came around, and I think it was 2012, and No for an Answer played, the first thing I did was get up and say, not all of these songs represent my current lifestyle. We're sort of here to commemorate this record and the label that put us out and to say thank you. And I got that out right off the bat, like, yeah, Edgebreaker, right here, And you can't be a No for an Answer forever if you're not living No for an Answer forever. You can't be in Carrie Nation, which was intended as a somewhat tongue-in-cheek project to sort of sarcastically, or maybe not sarcastically, but somewhat caustically respond to Project X and Judge, which at the time we saw as both being very silly, like these non-violent, non-threatening, diminutive people putting out these warrior records, and we're like, those are not warriors. The lads are on this coast, and this band weighs 1,000 pounds. Over time, I got to say, particularly Mike Judge, ended up producing some incredible hardcore. But right at its advent, militant straight edge seemed like the dumbest fucking thing ever to us. And without that observation, Carrie Nation wouldn't have existed.
Gotcha.
So anyway, why do the bands and the sounds always change? A la Kevin Seconds? Because life changes. Like the pandemic and some personal differences kind of killed my last band, but it might be my favorite band, and that was this band called SHINER'S CLUB. Luckily, like say John Coyle, who was the main songwriter, and we remain friends to this day. But we sort of started talking about maybe doing it again, or should we do it again, or we'd have these sort of text conversations between the four of us. And eventually, very recently, I kind of stepped up as saying that I don't really want to do that. And one of the main reasons was actually I was in a really painful, really dark, really isolated place when I wrote those songs, and I'm in a very different place now. And I don't really need to revisit it. And on top of that, I don't want to write material that doesn't match the original mindset. Like if Milo Ackerman cranked out a Descendants record next month that was exclusively political, didn't sing about coffee, and had no heartache, it wouldn't be a Descendants record. It'd just be saying it's a Descendants record. So the bands have changed as the life has changed.
I like that. And you know what? I think it's as simple as that. And just have one. Okay, I have two more questions for you, so you're not going anywhere.